Hi everyone, it's Tammy with Shabby Fabrics. I'm here today with the March Door Banner Club by Riley Blake. This one is called Feeling Lucky. I love this one. This is a great one to hang up all March. It doesn't particularly say it's leprechauns and rainbows, but it's still that March feeling with lots of green in it and lots of fun. The first element I'm going to show you is going to be this flower right here. We're going to look at making this flower and how to get these points nice and sharp and nest this center, make the leaves. Then we're going to do a star block right here, show you some fun tips on how to get those points right. And finally, I'm going to show you how to do a diamond block and get your points nice and sharp. So let's go ahead and get started. All right, so the first thing I'm going to have you do is when you go through your pattern and you're cutting all your fabrics, definitely need to put a label on them. That's super important. You're just going to get confused. It causes confusion. You have to keep referring back to your cutting instructions to see now what size did I just cut that at. So I just simply label all my fabrics ahead of time and then I don't even think about it. So I have here a Y block, an H and a Q. All right, and so now these are pretty small little blocks. What we need to do is we need to sew and flip. Sew and flip is where we take and we're going to draw a line on the back corner to corner. I'm just going to use a regular friction pen, just like this. And we're just going to take and put these on the corners just like this. So I have 3 white ones here, here, and here. And then I have this gold one, a Q block. He's going to go up here in this corner. All right. So this is what this looks like once you've got that all done. Okay, so I've sewn all those on there. So after we sew them, now we can trim this to 1/4 inch. So I'm going to use a Creative Grids 12.5 by 2.5 inch ruler. I love this 1/4 inch line right here. It's perfect for laying right on my seam and then trimming that block. I have a Creative Grids rotating mat on set with me today. It saves me time. Give myself a little space here. Saves me time so I don't have to constantly be picking up my block. All I have to do is just spin it around and I can trim all 4 sides just like that. All right. Now, these little flower petal blocks are going to go together and they have to nest together. Actually, this gold goes on the inside. So this one I have pressed all of my seams, turn that over, toward the little corners. So to get this a nice sharp point, I want to press this one back the other direction. So I want to press these towards the green square in the middle. Let me show you how I do that. I'm going to take an iron, I'm going to heat this up, and you notice how I have my green square upside down here? That's on purpose. Because I'm pressing towards the green square, that's what's facing me. So I'm going to set this seam, I'm going to fold this over just like that. See how that just automatically makes that seam go that direction? Let's do it again. I have this little Panasonic gold, rose gold iron with me today. Isn't it pretty? I love this color. Nice little iron. All right, so when I'm all done, you can see all of my seams are now flipped to the inside. We can turn this over from the front, make sure everybody's where they're supposed to be. And I'm going to press this with a little bit of steam, just to kind of hold all those seams in place where I want them. All right, so the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to nest these 2 together. So when I fold these together and go to nest them, I'm watching this seam allowance is pressed one way, this is pressed the other. So now I can lock these seams together just like that. I'm going to take a Clover extra fine patchwork pin and put it right here on that seam allowance. And I'm going to nest these two seams at the bottom, just like that. Same way. And I'm going to pin this seam allowance. Same thing, just like that. Then you sew 1/4 inch here to here. All right. This is what we get. So when I press this seam, I press this seam open. I did that to sharpen the points. Whenever I have points coming together in a seam allowance, I'm normally going to press that open unless I have a compelling reason not to. All right, in this instance, I decided pressing that open was my best course of action. All right, okay. So I would make 2 of these, and then they're just going to go together just like this. So you can see, there's my last seam allowance here. That one's pressed open. Everything pressed open there. All right. All my little seams nested and all my points came right to a point. This looks really cute in the center. All right, so that's how I'm going to make a flower block. All right, so let's set that up here and let's take a look at making the leaves that are on the side of it. All right, for that I have an M and an F, and this is a rectangle, not a square. So when you go to do sew and flip on this, you need to watch what corners that you're putting this on. So I have a right facing leaf, which is going to go like this. And I have a left facing leaf, which is going to go like this. Okay, if this was a square, it wouldn't matter because it would just spin around and I could rotate it and it would be the other thing. But since these are rectangles, that doesn't work. All right, so you definitely have to watch your angle and do 2 one way and 2 the other. All right, let's take a look at that. Now here I've got this sewed together. Let's go ahead and trim that out. All right, and I'm just going to press this straight towards the white. There's no nesting seams on the leaves, so I don't have any reason really to press opposite and make these nest. Okay, so I have this and I have this. So you have a right face and a left facing one. So you're going to make 2 of each and put those together, just like this. Now I want to show you how, when I put these leaves together, I thought, uh-oh, what did I do? I have a space right here. That's on purpose. So don't think that you've missed points or you've done it wrong. This is how this is supposed to look. And I did press those seams open. All right. So then I need a little stem. That's an end piece, comes into the center. So 1 to one side, 1 to the other. And I press this towards the stem so that it looks just like that. Okay. All right, so we are ready to add a flower block to our stem block. So I'm just going to turn these right sides together. I'm going to make sure, yep, they fit together. That's always good. I'm going to make sure that this part right here, this seam, is in the center of my stem. And I am just eyeballing that. That's not science. I'm just eyeballing that. I'm not going to measure that or anything. I think it's close enough. I'm going to pin, definitely pin this last corner that you're going to sew. I find that these 2 edges are going to walk away from each other, and I'm going to have to stop and readjust them. So rather than stopping, I'm going to pin them, and then it's faster just to sew it all the way to the end. And then we'll pin this. All right, so I'm going to take this to the machine and sew 1/4 inch here to here, and we'll have a flower block. Let's take this to the iron. So I'm just going to set this seam, and we're going to see which way this wants to go. Let me open this up and take a look. You see how the seam is folding this direction towards the flower? I'm going to let it go that way. I'm going to let the fabric be the boss here. Normally, I'm the boss of the fabric. This case, I'm going to let it be the boss, and I'm going to let it go that direction, and that looks great on the front. I like that. There we go. All right. And there is our cute little flower block. That is cute. Let's talk about making half square triangles. So I'm going to start with 2 oversized squares, an A and an X. Get my labels off here. All right, I'm going to layer these right sides together. Now the directions say to draw a line diagonally in the center and then sew a 1/4 inch on either side of the line. While we could do that, one of my favorite tools is the Creative Grids Seam Guide. This is the 9-inch seam guide. They make a 9-inch and a 15-inch if you're doing larger squares. But what this is, it's exactly a 1/2 inch wide. It has a groove in the center so that I can easily line up the points of my square right in the center of the groove. You see that? Right in the center. There's one, here's the other. I know this is right in the middle. So now I can draw a line on one side and on the other. Just like that. Now when I take this off of here, I now have 2 perfect sewing lines that are exactly a 1/4 inch away from the center of my square. It's much easier and much faster to sew on a line than it is to guess where a 1/4 inch is on either side of it. This is my preferred method for doing a half square triangle when you do this. All right, you could put a couple of pins in this if you were so inclined. If you think these might walk away from you, just stick a couple of pins well outside of your sewing area so that your presser foot can easily run right down there and you don't have to worry about stopping to remove a pin. All right, so when we get that sewn, it looks like this. All right, so what I'm going to do is I'm now going to cut this in half right down the middle of my triangle, which is exactly a 1/4 inch from my line, from my sewn line. All right, I have 2 half square triangles. I'm going to go ahead and press these towards the gold. Go ahead and press the second one. All right. So now I need to trim this out to 2.5 inches square because this is oversized. Remember, we started with a definite oversized square. So I'm going to use a Creative Grids 2.5 by 2.5 inch square. I love this little thing. And I want you to see that diagonal line right down the middle, that 45-degree line, perfect. I'll line it right up, and now I can just cut all the way around. This is where a rotating mat also comes in very handy when I'm squaring up blocks. That was very quick, wasn't it? There we go. And I have a perfect half square triangle. All right. So now we're going to make the star block. So the other thing we're doing with the star block, we're going to make our half square triangles and set those aside. We need to have star points. This is the center of our star. These are the star points. So I have B and S here. All right, and so these, you're going to draw a line on the back, and we are going to sew and flip. So we're going to sew on the line this time. Okay, and that looks like this. Sew on the line. All right, then we take them and we trim it. And I'm going to press this towards the star point, towards the taupey brown. There we go, just like that. Now the next one I'm going to put on is going to go right here. Just like that, so that these intersect right here. So again, sew and flip, and that looks like this. All right, so let's cut this just like that. And again, press toward the brown. Perfect. All right, so now I have my star points. So we're going to lay out your star points with your center like this. Your half square triangles are up here. And this is what your star looks like when you put that all together. All right, let's turn that over. And I did press my rows open. So you notice I pressed this middle row. I press those points to that center block. Up here, I press these back the other way. The reason I did that is I wanted these seams to nest right here. I wanted to nest these seams so that these intersections would be perfect. Whenever I have an intersecting seam, they line up so much better than when you have stacked seams. When you're stacking seam allowances on top of each other, it creates a lot of bulk, and it's very difficult to get your seam allowances to line up exactly the way that you want them. So if you can get those to intersect like this, you will be much more successful at getting perfect corners. All right, and then I just opened up the last two seams right like that. And our last element is a diamond block. Okay, so with the diamond block, we're going to start with oversized squares again, oversized squares, and we're going to make half square triangles exactly like we just did. Okay, this is what we're making right here, and I think it goes like this. Here's right side up. So I sewed these together, and you can see how I pin these, and I want to show you, I actually, let's turn it over like this. You see how I pressed half of them one way and half of them the other? That's so I could get this seam allowance to nest right there. See how that nests perfectly and makes that point nice and sharp? I did the same thing on this side, just like that. And so I would press these open to, again, to sharpen that point. Let's do that. You can see that perfect little triangle right here? That's what I'm looking for. Just like that. That looks really nice. Let's do this one. Just like that. Okay, so by pressing these two towards the green and these two towards the white, not only do they nest and line up right here, when I go to put these together, these two seams now nest. And I can nest this corner together with a pin just like this. And I can nest this corner together just like this. Now I'm going to look at the center. Well, the center, I have my seams are both pressed open. So that's very easy. Oop, got a thread there. There we go. It's very easy to see how those are going to line up right there. And I'm just simply going to pin these seam allowances together. Now, if you're worried about this one pushing into this one, you can always put a second pin in here. I have done that many times. Just put 2 pins in there. Now, when you sew this corner to corner, you have perfectly matched point here. These points are perfect as well. And they're exactly 1/4 inch in. So when you go to sew all this together, you will have no problem with perfect points. All right, and that is Feeling Lucky door banner for Riley Blake. Thank you so much for joining me today. I hope you picked up some really good tips on how to get those seams to nest and how you can master those triangles. They are easy, especially if you oversize them. You'll be just fine. Thank you for joining me, and we'll see you soon on another Shabby Fabrics tutorial.